Have you ever wondered why the men who seem the most confident with women are often the ones carrying the deepest wounds? Why the man who owns a room with his smile may have once been the same boy staring at a phone, whispering to himself, "Why wasn't I enough?" A phone buzzes in this dark. One message sent. No reply. Hours pass. Days. Silence. His eyes in slow motion look steady, but behind them are scars you can't see, only feel. Picture this: a crowded cafe. He walks in, jacket crisp, smile dangerous. Within minutes, he's magnetic, like the world revolves around him. But here's the truth. What looks like charisma isn't talent. It's trauma, polished into performance. Not a gift, but a scar. Rejection doesn't just sting, it rewires. One ghosted text. One, "You're too nice." One crush who chose the man who didn't even care. These moments don't fade. They burn, reshaping how he sees love, women, and himself. Not a heartbreak, but a transformation. Not weakness, but recalibration. Here's the brutal truth. Rejection doesn't make men weaker. It makes them colder, sharper, harder. Not innocence, but armor. Not devotion, but strategy. The men you see thriving with women today? Most were once broken yesterday. And this isn't just about a few bad dates. It's a crisis no one dares to name. A battlefield where men are being reshaped by pain into something magnetic, dangerous, and difficult to reach. But to understand how these scars are born, you have to see where the story begins. When he walks into the room, and everything changes. Because the man you envy most may be hiding the very story that explains your own failures. But once you see it, it's already too late to go back. He steps into the cafe, and the atmosphere shifts like someone just dimmed the lights. His jacket cuts sharp lines against his frame. His stubble looks carved, deliberate. His smile, half knowing, half dangerous, pulls eyes before people realize they're staring. Within minutes, he's chatting with the barista, sliding numbers into his phone, and leaving women wondering why their walls suddenly felt paper thin. To the casual observer, he's a natural, a man women orbit without him lifting a finger. But that's the illusion. What you're seeing isn't talent. It's scar tissue wearing confidence like a suit. Not born, but built. Not gifted, but forged. Because the story always starts differently. He wasn't always this man. He was once the good guy, the believer in romance, in soulmates, in the idea that love conquers all. He bought the flowers. He remembered every anniversary. He poured his heart out in texts that went unanswered. He believed devotion would spark desire. But instead of rewards, he got punishment. Here's a scene burned into memory. Sitting on his bed, staring at his phone, waiting for a reply that never comes. Hours turn into days, and all he gets is silence. Ghosted after giving his all. Another night, another unanswered message, another reminder that kindness doesn't guarantee connection. Not love returned, but love ignored. Not loyalty rewarded, but loyalty replaced. And then comes the cliché dagger. "You're too nice." 3 words that cut deeper than betrayal itself. Because what she really means is, you don't excite me. You don't challenge me. You don't make me feel the way he does. And he? He's often the man who barely tries, the one who seems indifferent, the one who doesn't chase. This is where belief collides with reality. Psychologists call it cognitive dissonance, but for him, it feels like betrayal. Everything he thought he knew about attraction crumbles. He faces a choice: keep playing the role of the hopeless romantic, and keep losing, or tear up the script and face the truth. And that truth usually arrives with the final heartbreak, the one that shatters illusions so completely there's no way back. Maybe it's the fiancé who cheats. Maybe it's the girlfriend who leaves for his closest friend. Or maybe it's simply the cruel realization that being the nice guy was never the currency of desire. It was the tax he paid for being overlooked. That's the breaking point. That's when he realizes the old version of himself has to die. If he wants to survive love, he can't be the man he used to be. After that final heartbreak, something in him snaps. The man who once led with raw emotion now leads with calculation. His heart, once soft, naive, and wide open, turns into a laboratory. Every date becomes an experiment. Every conversation becomes data. Every silence, every smile, every subtle glance is cataloged, dissected, and analyzed. He's no longer chasing approval, he's hunting patterns. Picture this. He sits across from a woman at dinner. She laughs at his joke, but her eyes flick toward her phone. Before, he would have ignored it, told himself she's just distracted. Now, he notes it, stores it, tests his next move. Another man might ask nervously, "Are you bored?" He simply leans back, lets the silence stretch, watches her scramble to re-engage. Not insecurity, but experiment. Not emotion first, but curiosity first. Not hope, but hypothesis. He becomes an investigator of human desire, a scientist wearing a mask of composure. And here's the paradox. His detachment doesn't repel women. It attracts them. When he's observing instead of chasing, he looks calm. When he's testing instead of hoping, he seems magnetic. Women sense he isn't desperate for their validation, and that very indifference pulls them closer. But don't mistake it for magic. This wasn't learned in books or whispered in locker rooms. This skill was forged in pain. The charm people see now is built on nights of humiliation. His emotional intelligence was carved from moments when he misread interest and paid for it. His composure is nothing more than scar tissue hardened into armor. In this experimental phase, he notices truths most men never see. Mystery excites more than full exposure. Teasing lights more sparks than endless compliments. Being slightly unavailable creates more desire than constant presence. Slowly, painfully, he accepts the truth no one wants to say out loud. Attraction doesn't follow morality. It follows psychology. Not kindness equals desire, but tension equals desire. Not devotion equals loyalty, but scarcity equals value. These truths sting. They tear down the fairy tales he once clung to, but they also liberate him. Because once you see the rules, you can play the game. Once you know attraction runs on psychology, you stop wasting time on illusions. This is where he develops strategic empathy. He doesn't worship women anymore, and he doesn't resent them either. He studies them. He learns to read hesitation in a voice, the flicker of a glance, the difference between interest and politeness. With every interaction, his ability sharpens. What once broke him now builds him, and when other men wonder why he looks so smooth, the answer is simple. It's not smoothness, it's survival. Scar tissue tells a story. In the body, it's tougher than the skin it replaces. It doesn't feel as much, it doesn't bend as easily, but it takes far more to tear it again. The heart works the same way. When his old worldview shattered, it didn't vanish. It calcified. Innocence turned into armor. Hope hardened into strategy. What once was fragile belief in love became a framework designed for survival. From the outside, this armor looks like confidence. Women see a man who doesn't beg for attention, a man who doesn't crumble when turned down, a man who can walk away with steady eyes. To them, it looks like power. To him, it feels like necessity. Not natural charisma, but engineered resilience. Not a gift, but a defense. He didn't stumble into this. He was forced. He had to learn to read women because misreading them used to cost him everything. He had to learn what to say because silence once made him invisible. He had to build confidence because rejection threatened to break him. This is what I call defensive mastery. And the irony is clear. Men who were thrown into the ocean often swim harder than those trained in the pool. But scars don't just protect, they deepen. Pain carves trenches in the soul that comfort never can. Women feel it even if they can't articulate it. They sense he's walked through fire. They sense he knows betrayal, loss, disappointment. His gaze carries weight. His silence has gravity. That's what makes him magnetic. Picture this. She's on a date with him, sipping her drink, testing him with subtle jabs. Most men flinch, over-explain, try harder. He doesn't. He smirks, throws back a line sharper than her test, then leans back without breaking eye contact. She feels it, the difference. He's not performing for her approval. He's already complete without it. That's when she leans in closer. Not worship, but indifference. Not desperation, but detachment. This is where emotional archaeology begins. He digs beneath the surface. He hears the words but listens for the gaps. He sees the smiles, but looks for the hesitation behind them. He remembers all the times he mistook politeness for desire, all the red flags he once ignored because he wanted to believe. And now, he doesn't ignore. He notices everything. Over time, this process becomes instinct. He can sense when she's testing him. He can feel the difference between genuine attraction and performative interest. He sees through illusions most men never question. Because most men don't really see women. They project fantasies onto them. They chase shadows of what they wish was true. But him? He sees reality. He responds to what's actually there. And in a world full of blind chasers, his clarity makes him stand out like fire in the dark. Of all the lessons rejection teaches, the strangest one is indifference. Not the dead indifference of a man who doesn't care at all, but a sharpened balance. The ability to care just enough to engage, but never so much that he loses control. I call it the strategic indifference algorithm, and it's the invisible line between the men women forget and the men women chase. He didn't learn this by choice. He learned it the hard way, after pouring himself into women who vanished. After caring too much, only to hear, "You're too nice." After watching neediness kill desire faster than anything else. Rejection taught him what no book could. When you cling, you lose. Picture this. He's on a date. The conversation flows, but then she pulls back, testing him. Most men panic. They double text. They over-explain. They lean in harder. He doesn't. He relaxes, takes a sip of his drink, and lets the silence hang. She glances back at him, confused, then intrigued. Because he isn't chasing, he's centered. Not over-investment, but calibration. Not chasing, but control. This shift rewired him. Now, even when he meets a woman who excites him, he doesn't drown in it. He can enjoy her presence without needing her validation. He can pursue her without losing himself. He can feel desire without turning it into desperation. And that balance, rare, almost impossible to fake, creates unpredictability. And unpredictability is oxygen for attraction. The paradox is brutal. The less he clings, the more women cling to him. The less he needs, the more he receives. Because in the silent marketplace of attraction, neediness signals low value, while selective attention signals strength. And unlike fake aloofness, his indifference is authentic, carved into him by heartbreak. That's why it works. But rejection gave him more than indifference. It gave him paradox. He is now both more vulnerable and more protected than ever before. On one side, his scars give him emotional depth most men never touch. He knows betrayal. He knows the sting of silence. He knows what it's like to give everything and still lose. Women sense that depth. They lean toward it because it feels real, and real is rare. On the other side, he wears armor, boundaries forged from loss, a refusal to collapse into need, the power to walk away at any moment. To women who are tired of carrying weak men, that kind of strength feels irresistible. This duality creates what I call accessible depth. He can be vulnerable without being weak. He can be open without being dependent. He can connect without clinging. That balance is addictive. It gives women intimacy without suffocation, closeness without constant reassurance. And that is why heartbreak, as cruel as it is, often forges the kind of man who becomes unforgettable. Over time, the scars evolve into something sharper. What begins as pain slowly turns into pattern recognition. After enough ghostings, betrayals, and false starts, his brain builds what I call the pattern recognition matrix. It isn't theory. It isn't advice from a friend. It's instinct carved into him by survival. Now he can sit across from a woman and read the future of the interaction in minutes. The way her eyes flick down to her phone, the hesitation in her laugh, the pauses between her words. He doesn't need weeks to figure her out. He knows within moments. He can tell if she's rebounding, if she's only seeking validation, or if she's truly interested. He sees the difference between genuine desire and polite tolerance like night and day. Not guessing, but decoding. Not hope, but pattern. Picture this. A woman tells him she's not looking for anything serious, but texts him at midnight asking if he's awake. Another man might mistake this for interest. He doesn't. He knows it's attention-seeking, not affection. So instead of chasing, he pulls back, and she feels the absence like a void. Because his detachment unmasks her pattern, and patterns never lie. This efficiency is his edge. While other men waste time chasing ghosts, he conserves his energy. While others drown in mixed signals, he sees clarity. He knows when not to invest. He knows when to walk away. And this saves him from traps that used to ruin him. But the matrix doesn't stop with individuals. It scales. He begins to see cycles in attraction itself. The way women lean in when he pulls back. The way desire rises when space exists, then fades when he's too available. He learns the seasons of connection, the tides of interest, the hidden rhythms most men never even notice. To outsiders, it looks like intuition, but to him it's data, a map drawn from years of mistakes and scars. Not mystery, but repetition. Not luck, but exposure. And alongside this matrix, something else crystallizes. Emotional intelligence. Not the buzzword thrown around in self-help books, but a survival tool honed by necessity. He catches the flicker of doubt in her eyes, the forced tone in her laugh, the smile that hides disinterest. Signals most men never see ring like alarms to him. He knows when she wants him to lean in, and when space will build more attraction than presence. He knows when she wants encouragement, and when she's testing him. To others, it looks like he's reading her mind. But really, he's reading what rejection trained him to see. And perhaps most importantly, this intelligence points inward too. He studies himself, his triggers, his flaws, the mistakes that used to blindside him. And this self-awareness makes him steady, unguickable, dangerous, in the best possible way. At some point, the lessons stop feeling separate. They fuse. Every scar, every rejection, every silent night spent questioning himself begins to crystallize into one thing: a system, a set of instincts so refined it runs on autopilot. I call it defensive mastery. From the outside, it looks like natural confidence. On the inside, it's armor, built brick by brick from heartbreak. Picture this: a woman cancels last minute, leaving him hanging. Years ago, that would have crushed him. He would have apologized, begged for another chance, tried to prove he was worthy. Now, he shrugs, changes his plans, and moves on. She feels the shift immediately, because his worth was never on the line. He doesn't orbit her anymore. She orbits him. Not reaction, but recalibration. Not collapse, but control. Defensive mastery begins with firewalls. He no longer pours his entire identity into one woman's approval. He no longer places her on a pedestal. If she walks away, she takes nothing essential with her. That separation isn't cruelty, it's survival. Because he learned the hard way. Neediness kills attraction every single time. It shapes the way he speaks too. He knows how to be playful without oversharing, engaging without groveling, flirty without dependence. He can joke freely because rejection no longer threatens him. He can escalate boldly because failure no longer defines him. Once rejection loses its sting, freedom takes its place. And freedom looks a lot like confidence. At the core of this system is outcome independence. If she says yes, he smiles. If she says no, he smiles the same. He can want her without needing her. And women sense it instantly. They lean toward it like gravity, because desperation repels, while independence seduces. And real independence, it can't be faked. It has to be earned through fire, not need, but choice. Not attachment, but freedom. But defensive mastery is more than detachment. It's balance. He now knows when to invest and when to hold back, when to lean in and when to disappear. Which women deserve his vulnerability and which only want his attention. It's a calibration that almost no one gets right without scars. He had to overgive before he learned restraint. He had to break before he learned to bend. Yet here lies the cruel irony. The armor that makes him magnetic although locks him in. He can attract endlessly, keep options wide open, win the game. Others keep losing. But intimacy, love, that slips through the cracks. The same walls that protect him also isolate him. And unless he learns when to lower them, he risks becoming what once hurt him. A man who can touch hearts, but never lets his own be touched again. The irony of defensive mastery is that it often backfires. On the surface, it looks like he's winning. He attracts effortlessly. He carries himself with calm indifference. He never loses himself in a single woman's approval. To outsiders, he looks untouchable, the man who solved dating. But inside, the victories taste hollow. This is the success trap. Picture this. He's out with friends, and a woman he just met leans in, laughing at everything he says. Her hand lingers on his arm. By all measures, it's working, but he feels nothing. No spark, no risk, no connection, because his system is working too well. The walls that protect him also numb him. Not intimacy, but efficiency. Not connection, but control. The success trap begins when his defenses become automatic. He knows how to attract, how to keep options open, how to never flinch at rejection. But the same armor that keeps him safe also blocks closeness. He wanted love, but he built a fortress. And now, even when love shows up at the door, it can't get past the gates. The tragedy deepens when he meets a woman who could truly love him. The kind who isn't playing games. The kind who sees him for who he is. But by then, his system is so polished, so instinctive, that he struggles to believe her. He interprets sincerity as performance, loyalty as strategy, affection as manipulation. The fortress that once saved him now blinds him. Not safety, but solitude. Not strength, but distance. Some men never escape. They stay trapped in the role of the emotionally unavailable. They move from one shallow connection to another, admired for their composure, but hollow inside. They become the very archetype that once destroyed them, the men who wound others by keeping their own hearts locked away. The cycle repeats itself, generation after generation, but others eventually find something harder, rarer, more dangerous than indifference. They learn selective vulnerability. They keep their armor intact for the wrong women, but they learn to lower it for the right ones. They stop seeing every gesture as manipulation and start discerning who deserves trust. This isn't naive openness, it's disciplined vulnerability, and that's the razor's edge. To risk being hurt again, to open the gate knowing pain might enter, is the only way out of the success trap. Because without vulnerability, there can be no intimacy. Without risk, there can be no love. Not walls forever, but doors with locks. Not blind trust, but earned access. And that is the paradox of the wounded man. The pain that built his armor may be the only thing that teaches him when to take it off. Every confident man you see today was once a boy broken by love. Every master was once a disastrage. The man who walks through a room with composure once lay awake in the dark, replaying every text, every silence, every unanswered call, whispering to himself, "Why wasn't I enough?" Pain was his teacher. Scar tissue was his textbook. Rejection doesn't just bruise the ego, it rewires the soul. It crushes some into silence. It twists others into bitterness. But a few, a rare few, they take that pain and forge it into something else. Sharper, colder, harder to break. Yet even that transformation has a cost. The armor that makes him magnetic also makes him distant. The fortress that protects him also keeps love outside the walls. Not just survival, but sacrifice. Not just strength, but solitude. Here's the truth no one wants to face. Love will hurt you. Not once, not twice, again and again. The question isn't whether you'll bleed, it's whether you'll learn. Will you let heartbreak bury you, or will you let it build you? Will you close off forever, or will you risk again with the wisdom scars gave you? Scar tissue is stronger than skin. It doesn't feel as much, but it endures. And sometimes, that strength is exactly what makes it magnetic to those who are tired of being broken themselves. Women sense it. They feel the weight behind his eyes, the gravity in his silence, the depth cut into him by loss, and they are drawn to it, even if they don't know why. But strength alone isn't enough. Attraction alone isn't enough. If he wants more than hollow victories, if he wants love that heals instead of just love that distracts, he has to risk again. He has to open the gates, not blindly, not recklessly, but selectively, with those who prove worthy of trust. That's the only way out of the cycle. So when you see a man who looks unshakable, remember this: he wasn't born that way. He was broken, tested, rebuilt. His confidence is nothing more than scar tissue polished until it shines. The strongest men you know are often the ones who once bled the most. And now the question is yours. When rejection comes, and it will, what will you do? Will you let it hollow you out? Or will you let it sharpen you? Because every heartbreak is either a grave or a forge. You get to choose which one. If this spoke to you, don't just watch it once. Replay it. Share it. Because someone you know is living this story right now. And they need to hear that pain isn't the end. It's the beginning.